One of the things that I keep repeating in Spain is that the biggest scandal about the massive surveillance was that they were surveilling American citizens, but they had the right to surveil the rest of us. Was the same case with our prime ministers?
So I don't make any claims directly myself on the basis of my own experience that are new. Instead, I defer to journalists who actually hold the documentary archive, because I don't want to set a standard or make people think you should trust me. Regardless of whether or not I've been shown to be truthful or not, it creates a poor precedent. What I can say is that when you look at what has been revealed, and you look at the fact that even the closest allies to the United States, individuals like Angela Merkel, like Francois Hollande, like Nicolas Sarkozy, they were being surveilled in the most intense and private way. They have full transcripts of their calls and so on and so forth, according to some documents. Why would Spain be different? Now, I'm not particularly interested in the fact that Angela Merkel's been wiretapped, or Nicolas Sarkozy or Francois Hollande. Right or wrong, these are what we would traditionally consider valid foreign intelligence targets. I'm much more concerned with the indiscriminate nature of the surveillance that affects all of us without regard to your foreign intelligence value. The indiscriminate collection, the indiscriminate interception in advance of reading this material, because it changes the balance of power between citizen and state. That may be many things, but it's not a free society.
So in Spain, there's been recent reforms to the law of public security and amendments to the procedural criminal law and the terrorism laws that clearly undercut freedom of speech and other civil rights. And I have the impression this is a common issue all around Europe.
We see, particularly in Europe, particularly in Spain, quite concerning trends. Where we have things as simple as puppeteers being arrested on the basis of thinking something that is clearly meant in a parodious nature. When we have the Twitter police now in Spain who are saying, this tweet is inappropriate, or this tweet hurts the feelings of a victim of terrorism, or this tweet supports a terrorist group. Now, that's not to say that we as society should not condemn people who intentionally try to humiliate people who have suffered loss. That would be repugnant activity. But being a terrible person is not a crime. If it were, we wouldn't be able to have a full session of Parliament unless it were meeting in prison. And this gets us to really the core of the issue of terrorism, how it's become a magic word that sort of unlocks the most extraordinary capabilities of government with the fewest restraints and the least oversight. Terrorism is being treated by more and more countries around the world as something more than a crime, the same kind of crime that it always has been. Now, Spain has a history of terrorism, as does the United States, that predates September 11th. It predates Al-Qaeda. But why have we changed the nature of our societies? We have reordered our societies. We have reordered our liberties to accommodate the preferences of police agencies to the detriment of society. Now, this is not to say that terrorism is not a crime that we should take seriously. This is not to say that we should not combat terrorism. This is not to say that we should not increase our vigilance to try to mitigate the threat where we can. But we should not sacrifice the nature of our societies in response to what is ultimately an isolated and sporadic crime. Abandoning open society for fear of terrorism is the only way that we can ever be defeated by it.
Alberto Garzón has recently demanded that we, Spain, will fulfill the European Parliament resolution that would grant you asylum. So I was wondering, do you think or hope that maybe a left-wing coalition, which is a big big chance that we have one in Spain, would be more likely to fulfill this European Parliament resolution?
I stay strictly out of parties on a partisan basis because I think it's more important that we focus on the values rather than the parties. Love the act, not the actor. But I do think it's interesting and it is encouraging that despite sort of the protestations of the most institutional figures in many governments where they go, look, this guy, even if we think what he did was okay or it was right or it benefited the public largely, we can't do this because the U.S. won't permit it. The U.S. will sanction us, or they'll take some responsive action, or they'll stop sharing intelligence with us. But more broadly, it comes down to the case of we're talking about Western democracies here when we're talking about Spain. Does anybody think it would be fair or would be righteous or it would benefit the United States government in any way relative to the costs if they went, any country that shelters a political dissident who's criticized our policies and programs, we will sacrifice the lives of their citizens by not sharing information about terrorist threats or similar, simply to punish them for protecting the human rights of something that even we, the United States, have asserted in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, is proper and appropriate. The right to seek and enjoy asylum is laid out in treaties that my own government put forth as a human right. Whether it's the UN Declaration of Human Rights or the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, these things aren't in question. If there are any politicians that are saying we should abandon our defense of human rights for fear of being punished for it, I think that says much more about them and what they truly believe is the value of human rights, rather than it does about myself or anything else.
What would you say to someone that is considering using one of these safe boxes? Like in Spain, we have Filtrala.
As a whistleblower, as someone who is a witness to criminal activity or some other serious wrongdoing, whether in government, corporations, or anywhere else, you have to protect yourself. You have to be aware of the fact of surveillance and think about how to combat that. Now, secure drop, and possibly, although I'm not familiar with it, Filtrada, or these other systems, are things that you should never connect to from your home. You should never even research them from your home. Because, for example, let's say in the wake of an investigation in a government office, and they see, 29 out of 30 people had completely clean histories. But the last of them, lucky number 30, happened to research anonymization technologies online from their home. This would be an indicator that would flag them for further suspicion, particularly if they were searching for terms like Filtrada or secure drop or anything else. Instead, you should access these from systems that are not connected to your name. You should use an anonymous system or a library system or something with which you have no association. If you're calling a journalist, you should use it from a phone number that's not associated with you, a payphone or something similar like that. You should be aware of the indicators of travel that you leave behind you. For example, you shouldn't be in your car because it has a license plate attached to it, which could be observed by traffic cameras. You shouldn't use payments. For example, if you're using an internet coffee or a coffee shop's internet connection, you shouldn't buy coffee there with your credit card. And you definitely, if you're on the internet at all, you should establish a history of using Tor. You should establish it now before you're engaged in any operational activity so that it's normal for you rather than anomalous. You have to think about what you value and when it's worth the cost. I talked to Daniel Ellsberg, who revealed the Pentagon Papers in 1971. This was the classified history of the war in Vietnam that claimed many, many lives, both American and those of Vietnamese and other neighboring countries. Now, his biggest regret was that he waited too long, in his own words. He said, don't do what I do. Don't do what I did. Don't wait until it's too late.